In a world that often praises toughness and winning at all costs, the Buddha quietly reminded us of a different kind of strength, the soft power of compassion. He taught that true courage is not about fighting others, but about opening our hearts to understand and care, even when it's hard. In this gentle reflection, we'll explore why compassion is a real superpower, how it can heal the pain we hold inside, soften the walls we build, and bring us closer to the peace we keep searching for. Here on the Dharma journey, we share simple Buddhist wisdom, mindful reminders, and quiet moments to help you come home to yourself, just as you are, no masks, no pretending. If today's talk brings you a little more calm, may it also remind you that kindness, to others and to yourself, will always be your greatest strength. And if you'd like, you're warmly invited to stay on this journey with us. Subscribe, breathe, and come back anytime you need a place to rest and listen. What is true superpower? In a world that worships power, speed, and the constant chase for more, we're taught from a young age that strength is about being tougher than others. That success is about rising higher, moving faster, building walls to protect what's ours and pushing through life as if we're in a constant battle. We praise physical strength. We admire influence and wealth. We look at leaders, celebrities, the loudest voices in the room, and think this must be true power. And so, we spend so much of our energy trying to be strong in the ways the world recognizes, climbing ladders, staying busy, showing no weakness, winning at all costs. But the Buddha's teachings quietly turn this idea upside down. In his eyes, real power has nothing to do with how many people fear you, obey you, or admire you. Real power, the kind that frees the mind and softens the heart, is compassion. At first glance, that might sound naive. How can kindness stand against cruelty? How can softness win where force rules? But look closer, what does it cost us to live in constant battle, with others, and with ourselves? What happens to the heart when it is hardened day after day? Trained to push, conquer, dominate? It grows lonely, closed off, hungry for something it can't name. Compassion is a different kind of strength. It is the strength to feel, truly feel, what another person is going through, even when it hurts. It is the courage to forgive when every part of you wants to hold a grudge. It is the quiet power to sit with your own pain and not pass it on to someone else. The Buddha taught that anger is easy. Hatred is easy. Blame is easy. But it takes a brave heart to open again and again, even when life wounds you. It takes a deep inner trust to respond with patience when someone else brings you trouble. Compassion is not weakness. It does not mean letting others walk all over you. It does not mean staying silent in the face of injustice. True compassion is clear-seeing. It knows that cruelty never ends cruelty, it only feeds it. That fear only grows when we keep throwing it at each other. That the deepest freedom comes when we stop adding more hatred to the world and choose to bring care instead. Maybe you felt this yourself. Maybe you've seen how one small act of kindness, a gentle word, a patient listening ear, a moment of forgiveness, can change an entire day, an entire relationship, sometimes even an entire life. In the Buddha's time, this was radical. Thousands of years ago, kings and rulers boasted of armies, wealth, land. But the Buddha walked barefoot, empty-handed, and said, "The one who conquers himself is mightier than the one who conquers thousands in battle." What did he mean? He meant that when you master your mind, when you understand your anger instead of feeding it, when you choose compassion instead of revenge, you become truly unshakable. The storms of life may still come. People may still harm you, misunderstand you, abandon you. But your heart remains steady, like a great tree that bends with the wind but does not break. This is the power the world overlooks. The power that doesn't shout for attention or decorate itself with titles and trophies. Compassion works quietly, in the shadows of ordinary days. It shows up in how we speak to our children, how we care for our elders, how we forgive our friends, how we forgive ourselves. And yes, it starts at home. We cannot offer genuine compassion to the world if we do not first offer it to ourselves. So many of us are trained to be our own harshest critics. We think we have to be flawless to be worthy. We hide our tears, scold our fear, try to fix our broken pieces with force. But the Buddha's path invites us to do something radically different, to sit still, to turn inward. To see our wounds clearly, and to hold them with kindness instead of shame. To say to ourselves, I see your pain. I see how hard you're trying. And I am here for you. When you treat your own heart with this gentle respect, something softens. The armor begins to loosen. The battles you fight inside you lose their edge. And the world outside you starts to feel less threatening, because you know you can return home to yourself anytime, with patience and compassion as your companions. Imagine a world where we raised our children to believe that kindness is strength. Imagine workplaces where listening is valued more than shouting, where forgiveness is a sign of courage, not defeat. Imagine families where it's safe to say, I'm hurting, without fear of judgment. This is not weakness, this is power at its purest, strongest, and most healing. Every time you choose compassion, you push back against the fear that says, I must protect myself by closing my heart. Every time you pause before reacting in anger, you plant a seed of peace that might grow far beyond what you can see. This doesn't mean you'll never feel hurt, angry, or frustrated again. You will, because you're human. But with practice, you learn not to stay stuck there. You learn to ask, what does this person need? What do I need right now? How can I ease this suffering instead of feeding it? This is how compassion becomes a true superpower, not through grand gestures, but through ordinary moments, repeated thousands of times. A soft look when someone makes a mistake. A breath instead of a harsh word. An apology that says, I see where I caused pain. A forgiveness that says, I refuse to carry this poison in my heart. In the end, the Buddha's wisdom is simple. The world will always test us. Suffering will come. But we have the power to choose, in each thought, each word, each action, to meet that suffering with a heart that stays open. To meet it not with more anger, but with care. Not with fear, but with understanding. This is true superpower, not the kind that conquers nations, but the kind that conquers the walls inside us. Not the kind that wins applause, but the kind that brings real freedom, for you, for me, for anyone brave enough to try. May you carry this truth with you. Compassion is not weakness, it is courage. Many people misunderstand compassion. They think it's soft, passive, or even naive, a gentle sentiment that has no place in a world where power, control, and dominance are valued so highly. To some, compassion looks like surrender. It looks like letting others win, letting wrongdoers go free, or letting injustice stand without resistance. But if you look deeper, you'll see the truth. Real compassion is not about giving up, it is about standing up. It is not weakness, it is one of the greatest forms of courage a human heart can hold. Anyone can fight back with anger. Anyone can lash out when they're hurt, seek revenge when they're wronged, or hold grudges for years. That takes no special training, it's our instinct to protect ourselves through defense and attack. But to hold your pain in your hands, breathe with it, and choose not to pass it on, that is something entirely different. The Buddha taught that hatred never ends hatred, only love can do that. This is not poetry, it's a practical truth. When you repay harm with harm, anger with anger, the cycle grows stronger, not weaker. You may win the argument, win the fight, win the war, but you lose your own peace. You build walls around your heart that separate you from the very life you wish to protect. Compassion asks something much harder of us. It asks us to look at those who have hurt us and see their pain too. To understand that every harsh word, every cruel action, every betrayal is born from someone else's fear, confusion, or suffering. It doesn't mean we excuse it. It doesn't mean we forget. But it does mean we stop feeding the fire with our own anger. This choice, the choice not to retaliate, takes enormous strength. It is the bravery of restraint, the power of forgiveness, the courage to sit with pain instead of throwing it back into the world like a burning coal. Think about a moment when you were wronged. Maybe someone lied to you, betrayed your trust, or judged you unfairly. What was your first reaction? To strike back, prove them wrong, make them feel what you felt. And maybe you did. Or maybe you held it in, but the anger stayed inside, festering. What if you could choose differently? What if, in that moment, you could feel the burn of hurt, and decide, I will not add more suffering here. You still set boundaries. You still speak your truth. But you do it without poison in your words. Without revenge in your heart. That is not weakness, that is mastery. The Buddha's life is full of stories like this. People insulted him, threatened him, rejected him, and yet he stayed calm, unmoved, unshaken. He didn't pretend their words didn't exist, he simply chose not to hold on to them. He taught his followers that anger is like picking up hot coals to throw at someone else, but you are the one who gets burned first. Real compassion is fierce in its clarity. It knows when to say no. It knows when to stand firm. But it also knows that cruelty does not heal cruelty, and that your own freedom depends on what you choose to carry in your heart. This doesn't mean compassion is easy. In fact, it may be the hardest thing you ever practice. It asks you to stay open when your whole body wants to close. To soften when your pride wants to harden. To forgive when your ego wants to punish. To see yourself in others, even those you dislike. And it starts with you. Many people find it easier to offer compassion outward than inward. They can forgive others, but they can't forgive themselves. They carry mistakes from years ago like heavy stones in their pockets. They judge their fear, their sadness, their failures as flaws that make them unworthy of kindness. But the Buddha's teachings remind us, you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you wish to bring true compassion into the world, you must learn to hold your own suffering with the same gentle hands. When you fail, when you fall, when you get angry despite your best intentions, you begin again. You say to yourself, this too is human. This too can be met with care. Over time, this inner compassion becomes an unshakable strength. It allows you to stand your ground without building walls. To love without losing yourself. To protect what is right without adding more hate to the world. If you think compassion makes you a target, remember this, people sense true compassion. They feel its depth. They trust its honesty. A person rooted in compassion can calm a room full of tension. They can listen when no one else will. They can forgive what others cling to for life. And in doing so, they set themselves free. Imagine what your life could feel like if you chose this courage daily. If you met your anger with curiosity instead of judgment. If you listened more deeply, to yourself, to your loved ones, even to those who oppose you. If you forgave when forgiveness felt impossible, not for them, but for your own peace. This does not mean becoming passive or letting yourself be harmed. True compassion includes wisdom. It sees clearly when to step away, when to speak up, when to say enough. But it does so without poison in the heart. Without carrying the enemy within. So the next time someone calls compassion weak, look deeper. Ask yourself, what is easier, to fight and blame? Or to stand calm and open? What is more common, to react in anger, or to respond with care? What leaves you freer, holding on to bitterness, or letting go with understanding? The choice is yours, moment by moment, word by word, breath by breath. This is the courage the Buddha left us, the power to meet life as it is, with a heart that refuses to shut down. To meet pain with understanding, conflict with clarity, and hatred with the quiet force of love. May you remember, compassion is not the absence of strength. It is strength refined by wisdom and tested by life's hardest storms. It is your shield and your shelter. It is not weakness, It is the deepest, most enduring courage you will ever carry. The transformative power of compassion. We often think that if we want the world to change, we need to change other people. We want them to understand us, to stop hurting us, to act with more kindness, to see things our way. We believe that if we can just get them to think differently, do better, or love us more purely, then peace will finally come. But the Buddha's teachings remind us that true change rarely starts out there. Real transformation begins here, inside our own hearts. Compassion does not always change other people. It does not magically fix every broken relationship or erase all conflict from your life. But what it does do, without fail, is change you. It softens the tight knots of anger and resentment you've carried for years. It loosens the walls you've built to protect yourself from being hurt again. It heals the deep places inside you that once believed you had to fight, defend, and close off just to survive. This is the quiet power of compassion. It transforms the only thing you truly have any control over, your own mind, your own heart. Maybe you felt it. Maybe there was a moment when you chose to forgive someone. Not because they deserved it or even asked for it, but because you were tired of carrying the heavy burden of blame. In that moment, your heart felt a little lighter. Your breath moved a little more freely. You tasted a freedom that had nothing to do with the other person's actions and everything to do with your own decision to let go. That is compassion in motion. A gentle but unshakable force that begins within you, roots itself deeply, and then quietly spreads outward into your family, your friendships, your community, into the world. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like grasping a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else, but you are the one who gets burned. Compassion is the opposite. It is like putting down the coal, tending to the burn with care, and deciding not to pick up another one. Not because the world will never hurt you again, but because you choose not to add more pain to it. When you practice compassion, you become a safe place, first for yourself and then for others. You learn to meet your own suffering with kindness instead of blame. You stop beating yourself up for your mistakes. You forgive your past self for not knowing what you know now. You see the small, tender parts of you, the parts that are scared, jealous, angry, insecure, and you offer them the same understanding you wish someone else would have offered you long ago. This is not easy work. The world does not train us to be compassionate. It trains us to compete, compare, judge, and protect ourselves at all costs. Compassion asks us to go against that conditioning, to sit in our own discomfort without numbing it, to see our own flaws without hating them. To stay soft when everything around us says to harden up. But when you do, something remarkable happens. Your inner world shifts. The thoughts that once dominated your mind lose some of their grip. The fear that used to dictate your choices begins to loosen its hold. You feel less like a victim of circumstances you can't control and more like a conscious participant in your own life. And this shift does not stay hidden. Others feel it. The people closest to you notice when you stop reacting with harshness and start responding with care. They feel safer around you. Because your calm presence makes space for their own fears and mistakes. They trust you more deeply, because they sense that you are not here to judge them, but to understand them. Slowly, the compassion you cultivate within becomes the compassion you naturally offer outward. You speak differently. You listen more deeply. You pause when anger rises and ask yourself, what is this really about? You become a mirror that reflects back to others what it looks like to choose peace over blame, understanding over conflict. And yes, sometimes your compassion does touch other hearts. Sometimes your gentle presence helps someone else soften. Sometimes your willingness to forgive inspires someone else to forgive. But whether or not that happens is not the point. The real miracle is that you have changed, and that change is enough to ripple outward in ways you may never fully see. This is the quiet revolution the Buddha spoke of. Not a revolution of force, but of hearts. Not a battle to conquer others, but the courage to sit with your own pain so you don't pass it on. To stand in your own fear so you don't feed it into the world. To heal the war inside you so you don't keep fighting it outside. Think of the countless times anger, blame, and judgment have been passed down through families, communities, generations. Now imagine how different our world could look if more people chose to stop that cycle within themselves, if more people said, "This ends with me." Of course. Compassion does not mean you allow others to harm you. It does not mean you stay silent when injustice happens or pretend to be okay with what is not okay. True compassion is not passive, it is clear and wise. It knows when to stand up and speak out. But it does so without hatred in the heart, without the poison of revenge. So, if you want to change the world, start here, with your breath, your thoughts, your words. Sit with your own anger until you understand what it's trying to protect. Hold your own grief with kindness until it feels safe to soften. Notice when your mind wants to close and gently remind it that it is safe to stay open. One compassionate heart is not small or powerless. It is a seed. And seeds grow forests. Maybe your compassion will inspire your children to speak more gently to each other. Maybe your forgiveness will heal an old friendship that once seemed beyond repair. Maybe your calm presence will make a stranger's hard day feel a little less heavy. Or maybe your compassion will simply make your own life more peaceful, more spacious, more free. And that is more than enough. In the end, compassion may not change the whole world overnight. But it will change you, and when you are changed, the world around you cannot help but feel it too. This is the transformative power of compassion. Quiet. Steady. Strong. Beginning with you, and blooming far beyond you, like ripples across the still surface of a pond. May you remember that this power is yours, always, waiting patiently in your heart. Ready to soften what is hard, heal what is wounded, and remind you that peace is not something you find out there, it is something you grow, breath by breath, here within. Compassion is the root of wisdom. The Buddha once said that compassion and wisdom are like the two wings of a great bird. Without one, the bird cannot fly. Without both, we cannot reach freedom. In the modern world, we often separate these qualities. We think of compassion as an emotion, warm, tender, perhaps soft and personal. We think of wisdom as something different, sharp, clear, objective, maybe even cold and detached. But in the Buddha's teachings, these two are never separate. They grow together, feed each other, and without each other, they wither. Many people think wisdom comes from studying scriptures, gathering knowledge, or sitting in silence for years. These can help, but wisdom in the Buddhist sense is not just knowing facts. It is seeing reality clearly, as it is, beyond our fears, our biases, our self-centered stories. And this clear seeing is impossible if the heart is closed. Compassion is what softens the heart so it can see. When your heart is open to another's suffering, your mind becomes open too. You begin to notice the hidden causes of pain, the fear behind the anger, the longing behind the harsh words, the wounds behind the walls people build. You stop taking everything so personally because you see it is not always about you. You see how deeply connected we all are, how easily we hurt each other when we're lost in our own confusion. This is wisdom, seeing deeply into life's true nature. Understanding that suffering is universal. Understanding that every harsh word or cruel action is rooted in ignorance and pain. And compassion is what allows this understanding to arise. Think of someone you love dearly, maybe a child, a parent, a friend. When they are hurting, you naturally want to help. You listen more carefully. You notice the small things they do not say. You forgive their sharp edges because you understand where they come from. This is compassion turning into wisdom. You see more clearly because you care more deeply. But this does not mean compassion makes you blind or naive. Some people fear that a compassionate heart is too soft for this harsh world, that you will be taken advantage of, that people will walk all over you if you keep forgiving and understanding. But the Buddha taught that true compassion does not make you foolish, it makes you wise. A wise heart knows when to help and when to step back. It knows when to say yes and when to say no. It does not cling to resentment, but it also does not allow harm to continue. Compassion is not letting yourself be a doormat. It is the strength to protect what is good, to draw clear boundaries when needed, and to do it all without hatred or fear. In this way, compassion and wisdom grow together. The more you open your heart, the clearer your mind becomes. The clearer your mind, the more skillful your compassion becomes. They are not two separate paths, they are one. The Buddha himself was called the Great Compassionate One and the Fully Awakened One. He did not separate his awakening from his love for all beings. His wisdom did not make him distant, it made him more deeply present with the suffering of the world. Because he understood the roots of suffering, he could teach the way out of it. Because his heart was open, people felt safe to come to him with their burdens. In our own lives, we can see this truth in small, ordinary ways. When we're angry, our mind narrows. We see only our side. We see only the insult, the threat, the need to defend ourselves. But when compassion enters, our vision expands. We remember the other person's humanity. We see that they too are hurting in some unseen way. And often, in that moment, a wise solution appears, something we could not see when we were blinded by anger. A mind without compassion is like a sharp knife with no handle, dangerous, ungrounded, easy to misuse. But when that same mind is held in a compassionate heart, it becomes a tool for healing. Your words become kinder. Your actions more skillful. Your presence more calming. People feel safe with you because they sense both your clarity and your care. This is true not only with others, but with yourself. Self-compassion is the beginning of self-understanding. When you stop attacking yourself for every mistake, when you hold your fear and shame gently instead of hiding from them, you begin to see your own patterns more clearly. You become less reactive, more patient with your flaws. You see where your old wounds come from, and slowly, you begin to heal them. This is wisdom born from compassion. And it is a lifelong practice. There will be days when your heart closes, when judgment feels easier than understanding, when resentment feels safer than forgiveness. That is human. But each time you remember to soften again, to open again, to listen more deeply, you grow your wings a little stronger. One wing is compassion. One wing is wisdom. Together they lift you above the endless struggle of who is right and who is wrong, above the tight prison of me versus them. They carry you into a space of freedom, where you see that all beings want the same thing, to be safe, to be happy, to be free from suffering. Imagine a world where more people lived this way, with hearts open and minds clear. Where compassion guided our choices at home, at work, in politics, in daily life. Where wisdom protected compassion from becoming blind, and compassion protected wisdom from becoming cold. This is not some distant dream. It begins here, in you. With each small choice to pause before judging. To listen before reacting. To forgive before you fully understand. To see that your kindness is not separate from your insight, they feed each other. Lift each other, make each other whole. May you remember the Buddha's simple truth, compassion and wisdom are the wings that carry us to freedom. May you care deeply. May you see clearly. And may you know that when your heart and mind fly together, you are already free. Small acts, big impact. When we talk about compassion or kindness, it's easy to think of them as grand gestures, life-changing sacrifices, big heroic moments, sweeping changes that turn the world upside down. But the Buddha's wisdom reminds us of something far simpler, and far more powerful. Sometimes it is the smallest acts, given with a sincere heart, that save a person from the deepest darkness. Think about it, how often have you felt your whole day shift because of something so small? A stranger held the door when your hands were full. A friend texted you just to say, "I'm thinking of you." A colleague gave you an understanding look when you were about to break down. These moments don't cost money or require special skills. Yet they reach places in us that big speeches and fancy solutions often cannot touch. One kind word. One forgiving smile. One moment of truly seeing someone when they feel invisible. This is the power of small acts. They seem tiny, like pebbles dropped into a vast ocean, but their ripples go far beyond what our eyes can see. The Buddha taught that everything is connected, our thoughts, our words, our actions. A gentle word spoken today can soften someone's anger tomorrow. A small act of patience now can prevent an argument that might have lasted years. A moment of forgiveness can free two hearts at once, the one who forgives, and the one who is forgiven. Yet in our busy lives, we forget this. We chase big solutions for big problems. We wait for the right moment to do something meaningful, some perfect day when we'll have more time, more energy, more clarity. But life is not lived on some distant perfect day. It is lived right here, in these tiny ordinary moments, stacked one on top of the other. Sometimes the smallest act is simply being fully present. Listening when someone speaks, instead of waiting for your turn to reply. Putting your phone down when a loved one needs your eyes, not your distracted nod. Breathing deeply when you're about to snap at your child or partner, and choosing a softer word instead. These things don't make headlines. They won't win you awards. But they can save a heart that was quietly breaking. They can remind someone that they matter, maybe just enough to hold on for one more day. Maybe you've been on the receiving end of such an act. Maybe once, when you were younger, you felt unseen, unwanted, lost. And someone, maybe a teacher, a neighbor, a stranger on a bus, offered you a small kindness that stayed with you long after they forgot about it. To them, it was nothing. To you, it was everything. This is how compassion works. It doesn't always show its results immediately. Sometimes your smile won't fix someone's sadness. Sometimes your gentle word won't erase their pain. But somewhere deep inside, it plants a seed, a reminder that the world is not completely harsh, that people can be kind, that light does exist even on the darkest path. And here is the quiet miracle. You don't need to be perfect to offer this light. You don't need to have your life fully figured out. You don't need to be endlessly patient or wise. You only need to remember that you, too, have the power to give, in small, real ways, right now. When you forgive someone who hurt you, not because they deserve it, but because you're tired of carrying the burden, you free yourself. And sometimes, your forgiveness frees them, too. When you choose to hold your anger instead of throwing it at someone else, you break a chain of suffering that could have stretched far beyond that moment. When you look at someone with genuine understanding, you remind them they are not alone. This is why the Buddha often spoke of simple virtues: right speech, right action, right intention. He knew that enlightenment does not come from a single lightning strike of wisdom. It comes from thousands of small moments of mindful living, one gentle word, one honest breath, one compassionate choice at a time. So often we underestimate our impact. We think, who am I to make a difference? But think of the people who have changed your life, really changed you. It probably wasn't the most famous people, the loudest people, the richest people. It was the ones who saw you when you felt unseen. The ones who listened when you needed to be heard. The ones who forgave you when you could not even forgive yourself. Your small act can be that for someone else. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But someday, when they are alone in their room, replaying the worst moments in their mind, they will remember your kindness. They will remember your soft eyes, your patient silence, your gentle words. And they will breathe a little easier. Maybe they will choose not to give up. Maybe they will choose to pass that kindness on. Small acts do not end with us. They move forward, person to person, moment to moment, a hidden network of care that binds us all in ways we may never fully see. So don't wait for the right time to do something big. Do something small now. Say, thank you. Say, I'm sorry. Say, I see you. I'm here. Hold a door. Let someone merge in traffic. Leave a kind comment instead of a harsh one. Forgive yourself for being imperfect. Forgive others for being human. You never know who needs it most. You never know whose darkness your tiny light will soften. But trust this, when you drop even the smallest pebble of compassion into the ocean of life, the ripples reach farther than you will ever know. This is the secret the Buddha left for us, that our greatest power is not found in huge gestures, but in the simple, mindful, loving things we choose to do every day. These small acts are not small at all. They are the seeds of a kinder world, planted quietly, grown slowly, carried gently, one heart at a time. May you plant these seeds. May you tend them with your breath, your words, your presence. And may you trust that each tiny act of compassion has an impact far bigger than you can ever measure, for yourself, for those you touch, and for the world that needs it now more than ever. Compassion is not only for the good. When we think of compassion, we often imagine it as something we give to those we love, our family, our friends, the people who treat us kindly and deserve our care. It feels natural to comfort a crying child, forgive a friend's mistake, or help a stranger who smiles back at us with gratitude. This kind of compassion is warm, safe, and feels good for both the giver and the receiver. But the Buddha's teaching goes deeper than that. He reminds us that true compassion does not draw borders. It does not divide the world into the good and the bad, the worthy and the unworthy. It flows freely, even, and perhaps especially, toward those who are the hardest to love. Think about the people you struggle to feel compassion for, the rude neighbor, the coworker who gossips about you, the family member who never says thank you, the stranger who cuts you off in traffic, the leader who uses power to hurt others. It is tempting to shut our hearts to these people, to say, they don't deserve my kindness. They should know better. They should fix themselves first. But the Buddha saw the world differently. He taught that suffering does not choose sides. It does not care whether someone is good or bad, polite or cruel. Suffering lives in everyone, in the angry man at the store, in the dishonest politician, in the person who betrayed your trust. Often, the ones who cause the most pain are carrying the deepest wounds themselves. This does not excuse harmful actions. It does not mean we let people continue to hurt us or others. Compassion is not the same as approval or blind tolerance. It is not about pretending someone's behavior is okay when it is not. True compassion sees clearly. It recognizes when something is harmful, and at the same time, it understands that harm often comes from unhealed pain. Imagine for a moment someone you cannot stand. Maybe they hurt you deeply once. Maybe they always find a way to make you feel small or angry. Now, imagine you could see straight into their heart, behind the walls they built, behind the harsh words, behind the masks they wear to hide their fear. What would you find? Maybe a lifetime of rejection. Maybe deep loneliness. Maybe an old wound that never found healing. The Buddha knew that if we only offer compassion to people who are easy to love, we limit its power. The real strength of compassion is revealed when we extend it to the difficult places, the dark corners of our hearts, the people who test our patience, the situations that make us want to slam the door and walk away. It does not mean you have to like everyone. It does not mean you invite harmful people into your life. But it does mean you wish them freedom from their suffering, because deep down, that is what will make the world safer, kinder, more peaceful for everyone, including you. Sometimes people think, if I forgive or feel compassion for someone who wronged me, I'm letting them win. I'm letting them get away with it. But compassion is not about them winning. It is about you not losing yourself to bitterness and anger. It is about refusing to let someone else's confusion poison your heart. When you hold hatred, you suffer first. When you wish pain on someone else, you carry that wish inside you like a burning coal, You burn before they do. The Buddha's teaching is clear. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. So, true compassion is an act of freedom, not for the other person first, but for you. It is saying, I will not let your darkness pull me down. I will not add my suffering to yours. I choose peace. Even if you do not. This does not mean we do nothing. Compassion is not passive. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is to stand firm, speak the truth, and protect what is good. But you do it with clarity, not hatred. You hold firm boundaries without hardening your heart. You say no without wishing harm. And sometimes, the most powerful compassion is silent. It is the quiet wish that even those who hurt you may find their own healing, so they no longer need to hurt others. It is the understanding that when they suffer less, the world suffers less. This is not easy. The mind will resist. It will whisper, they don't deserve it. They'll never change. Why should I waste my good heart on them? But the Dharma reminds us. Compassion is not about who deserves it. It is about who needs it. And the ones who need it most are often the ones who least know how to ask for it. You don't have to force your heart to open all at once. Maybe you start small, with a single thought, may you be free from the pain that makes you cause pain. You don't say it to excuse. You say it to free yourself from carrying their bitterness in your body. You can practice this every day, in small moments. When someone is rude to you, take a breath instead of reacting. When someone disappoints you again and again, hold a quiet wish for their healing, and protect your own peace with wise boundaries. When anger rises, listen to what it is trying to protect, then decide whether adding more anger will truly help. This is radical compassion, the kind that does not pick and choose. The kind that breaks cycles. The kind that does not depend on anyone else changing first. It starts with you, here, now, in the soft courage of your own heart. And slowly, you will notice a shift. Your mind becomes clearer. Your body feels lighter. Your days feel less tangled in resentment. You begin to see others not as enemies or obstacles but as humans, carrying hidden sorrows, just like you. The Buddha's teaching is simple but profound. Compassion is not a reward for good behavior, it is medicine for suffering hearts. And suffering does not ask who deserves help. It just longs for relief. May you remember this when it is hardest to remember. May you offer your compassion wisely, strong and clear, not because the world is always kind, but because you choose not to add more cruelty to it. May you find peace in knowing that every moment you refuse to close your heart, you become a small light in the darkness, and sometimes that is enough to help the world breathe a little easier. This is true compassion. Not only for the good, not only for the easy, but for everyone, everywhere, because suffering makes no exceptions. And neither should we. Compassion is also for yourself. When we hear the word compassion, we usually think of how we treat others. We imagine comforting a friend in pain, forgiving someone who hurt us, helping a stranger in need. We believe compassion is something we give away, a gift we offer to the world outside us. But the Buddha's teaching is clear, true compassion begins at home. Within your own heart, with the way you treat yourself. There's an old saying, you cannot pour water from an empty cup. And yet, how often do we try? We run through our days giving time, giving energy, giving care, yet we rarely pause to see if we are pouring from fullness or from emptiness. Slowly, without noticing, we become exhausted, resentful, disconnected from the gentle parts of ourselves that once felt alive. Sometimes we believe we are unworthy of our own kindness. We think compassion is for others, not for us. We tell ourselves, I should know better by now. I should be stronger. I shouldn't feel this way. We hold ourselves to impossible standards and punish our hearts for being so human. But the Buddha understood that the mind is not tamed through punishment, it is healed through understanding. If we want to ease suffering in the world, we must first learn to ease it in ourselves. If we want to care for others wisely, we must first care for the one person who will be with us every single moment of our life, ourselves. Self-compassion is not selfishness. It is not self-pity. It is not an excuse to stay stuck or never grow. It is the opposite. It is the foundation of real, lasting transformation. Because when you treat yourself with harshness, you live in fear of your own mind. When you treat yourself with kindness, you create a safe space inside where change can happen naturally. Think about how you treat a friend who is struggling. If they fail, you don't say, "You're worthless. You'll never get it right." You say, "It's okay. Everyone stumbles. Try again." If they're in pain, you don't tell them to toughen up and hide it. You sit beside them, hold their hand, remind them they're not alone. Why is it so easy to offer this to others, yet so hard to offer to ourselves? Self-compassion asks you to notice when your mind turns against you, when it repeats old stories about how unworthy you are, how behind you are, how you'll never be enough. And instead of believing those stories, you pause and offer your heart a different message: I am doing the best I can right now. I am human. I am allowed to rest. I am allowed to begin again. Sometimes people think self-compassion will make them lazy or complacent, but the truth is the opposite. When we are harsh with ourselves, we often stay stuck. Shame and blame drain our energy, make us feel small, and block us from seeing new possibilities. But when we treat ourselves with kindness, we create space for growth. We try again, not because we feel forced, but because we feel safe enough to be imperfect. This is what the Buddha meant by skillful effort. The path is not walked with self-criticism and punishment. It is walked step by gentle step, guided by wise care. We stumble, we stand, we stumble again, and each time, we meet ourselves with compassion. Self-compassion also means listening to our limits. So many of us keep pushing and pushing, believing rest is a weakness. We ignore the whispers of our body asking for sleep, good food, quiet moments alone. We say yes when our heart begs us to say no. We sacrifice our own well-being to meet everyone else's needs, telling ourselves that this is what kindness looks like. But what kindness is there in burning yourself out? What kindness is there in pouring from an empty cup until there is nothing left to give? Sometimes the bravest act of compassion is to pause. To say, I need to breathe. I need to care for myself before I care for anyone else. This is not neglecting others, it is protecting the very source of your love for them. When you care for yourself wisely, you bring a calmer mind, a steadier heart, and a deeper presence to the people you cherish. The Buddha also taught that we must not forget ourselves when we offer love to the world. He said, you, yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Not because you are perfect, but because you are human. Just like everyone else. So how do we practice this? Day by day. Sometimes it is as simple as pausing when you catch your inner critic shouting. Take one breath. Place your hand on your heart. Say to yourself, I see you. I hear you. I am here with you. Sometimes it is giving yourself permission to rest, to do something small that brings you joy, a quiet cup of tea, a walk outside, a moment of silence at the end of a busy day. Sometimes it is seeking help when you need it, trusting that you do not have to carry everything alone. Sometimes it is forgiving yourself for not having all the answers. For not being as strong as you thought you should be. This is how you learn to stop wounding yourself with your own mind. And from this place, compassion flows naturally outward. The more gentle you are with your own pain, the more gently you hold the pain of others. The more you understand your own mistakes, the more patient you become with the mistakes of those around you. The more you soften your heart toward yourself, the more open it remains to the world. This is not easy work. It takes courage to sit with yourself, to meet your shadows without judgment. To befriend the parts of you you were taught to hide. But each time you choose compassion over harshness, you build a home within yourself, a place of safety you can always return to, no matter what the world brings. So may you remember this simple truth: compassion is not just something you give away. It is something you keep close, like a warm blanket on a cold night. It is the well you draw from, again and again, so that your love does not run dry. Fill your cup first. Hold your own heart gently. And from that fullness, let your kindness flow, to everyone around you, and back to yourself again and again. This is the true meaning of compassion on the path. May you offer it freely, beginning where it matters most. With you. Compassion heals anxiety and hatred. When the mind is crowded with fear, anxiety, and resentment, it feels like there is no room to breathe. The heart clenches tight. The thoughts swirl in restless circles. Sleep becomes thin, conversations become sharp, and even moments of silence feel heavy with what we can't let go of. The Buddha saw this clearly. That the root of much of our suffering is not just in what happens to us, but in how tightly we hold on to our pain. Anxiety clings to imagined futures. Hatred clings to past wounds. Both grow stronger when the heart closes, when we tighten around the story that we must protect ourselves by staying angry, by staying afraid, by staying vigilant. But the Dharma points us gently in another direction. When we open the heart, truly open it, we discover there is simply no room for hatred to stay. Compassion is like warm sunlight entering a dark, locked room. It does not fight the darkness, it replaces it. This does not mean the Buddha told us to blindly forgive or pretend nothing ever hurt us. He never asked us to deny our pain or force ourselves to forgive before we're ready. Instead, he showed us something deeper. That holding on to hatred and fear keeps us stuck in the very suffering we want to escape. Forgiveness is not a gift to those who hurt us. It is freedom for ourselves. Hatred and anxiety feed each other. When we carry anger, we fear it will never end. We replay old memories, new grudges, imagined conversations, trying to justify our pain. Trying to protect ourselves from being hurt again. But every moment spent feeding hatred drains our spirit. It makes us heavy. It ties us to those we say we want to escape. Compassion loosens these knots. It does not erase the past, but it softens our grip on it. It does not excuse harm, but it stops the cycle of new harm growing inside us. It says, "What was done may have been unfair, cruel, heartbreaking, but I refuse to let it poison my heart any longer." Think of anxiety, too, how often it flares up when the mind is stuck on self-criticism. On comparing ourselves to others, on fearing we are not good enough, not safe enough, not worthy enough. When the heart is closed, the mind becomes its own prison. Every thought tightens the bars. Compassion, however, reminds us we are not meant to be perfect to be at peace. It holds our worry like a gentle friend. It whispers, "You are human. You are not alone. You can rest here." This is why so many Buddhist practices begin with loving kindness, metta. We wish ourselves and others to be happy, to be safe, to be free from suffering. Not because this instantly fixes our problems, but because it trains the heart to stay open. An open heart does not cling to every fear. An open heart does not feed every resentment. Try this for a moment. Think of someone who hurt you. Notice what happens in your body when you remember them. The tension in your shoulders. The tightness in your chest. The heat in your face. This is how hatred lives inside us, not in the past, but right now, in our own body. Now, imagine for just a moment, may you be free from the suffering that makes you cause suffering. This is not to excuse what they did. It is not to invite them back into your life. It is simply to say, "I refuse to carry your poison any longer. I choose freedom." Or think of your anxiety. The voice that says you must control everything. The fear that something terrible is always about to happen. Sit quietly with that fear and speak to it as you would to a frightened child. May you be at ease. May you be safe. May you find peace. Over time, this softens the mind's sharp edges. The Buddha taught that compassion is like water that soothes fire. When the fire of hatred and anxiety flares up, we do not beat it down with more force, we pour compassion on it. Gently, persistently, patiently. Does this mean we let others walk over us? No. Compassion is not weakness. It is clarity. It knows when to set boundaries, when to speak up, when to step away. But it does so without leaving splinters of hatred behind. It helps to remember that hatred is not something we owe the world. It is not a sign of strength. It does not protect us the way we think it does. In truth, it only keeps us chained to old pain. Compassion, on the other hand, is active strength. It breaks those chains. It does not mean you forget the lesson. It means you do not live your life defined by the wound. In your daily life, you can nurture this freedom in small ways. Notice when you are harsh with yourself, can you soften that voice? Notice when your thoughts spiral into anger, can you pause and breathe instead of feeding the flame? Notice when fear grips your heart, can you remind it, I am here. I am safe right now. Forgiveness may take years. That's okay. Opening your heart may feel impossible today. That's okay too. Each breath of compassion is one breath closer to freedom. Each tiny step away from hatred is a step toward peace. And slowly, you will feel the difference, the nights that are quieter, the conversations that are kinder. The thoughts that do not bruise you so harshly. You will feel space inside you where once there was only tension. You will notice moments of real peace, not because the world is perfect, but because your heart is not chained by the past or by fear of the future. This is the quiet miracle of compassion. It does not need to change the whole world overnight. It simply changes you, gently, patiently, deeply. And when you are changed, the world around you is never quite the same. May you remember, as the Buddha taught, that forgiveness is not weakness. Compassion is not naive, and freedom is not something someone else gives you. It is something you claim for yourself, in every moment you choose to let your heart stay open. Even when you have every reason to shut it down. May you know that when your heart is full of compassion, there is no room left for hatred to stay. And in that freedom, there is peace the world can never take away. One act of compassion a day. We often think of compassion as something huge, a heroic act, a grand sacrifice. A sweeping gesture that changes the course of someone's life overnight. We imagine we must wait for the right moment to do something that matters. But the Buddha's wisdom is far simpler. And far more practical. Real compassion is not found in big, rare moments. It lives in small, quiet ones, practiced day after day. A single act of compassion, offered sincerely each day, is enough to change you, and through you, to touch countless lives. Think about this. How many days pass when we rush through everything on autopilot? We wake up with 1,000 worries already buzzing in our mind. We check our phones, skim headlines, hurry through conversations, nod without really hearing what others are saying. Even when we mean well, we often forget to see each other, and ourselves, clearly. But when you pause, just once a day, to do something small and kind, the world shifts a little. You may not notice it immediately, but the seed is planted. It can be as simple as listening, truly listening, when someone speaks. Putting your phone down. Meeting their eyes. Not rushing to fix their problem or add your story on top of theirs. Just your presence, quiet and whole, can be a powerful balm for a heart that feels unheard. Or maybe your act of compassion is a soft word. A text to someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Hey, I thought of you today. I hope you're okay. You have no idea what that tiny message can do. Sometimes it arrives at the exact moment someone needs a reason to hold on for one more day. Sometimes your compassion is silence, choosing not to add harshness to an already heavy moment. Biting back the sharp reply. Breathing through the urge to prove yourself right. Sometimes kindness means stepping back, so an argument has space to dissolve instead of exploding. Sometimes it's forgiveness. A small one. The driver who cuts you off. The friend who forgot to call. Yourself, for not doing everything perfectly again today. These small pardons loosen the knots inside you, knots you didn't even know you were carrying. Compassion does not need an audience. It does not ask for recognition. It needs only your willingness to show up, imperfectly, inconsistently, but with an honest heart. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. One act a day. One moment when you choose to see someone instead of judging them. One moment when you put down your burden to help someone lift theirs, even if only with a smile or a silent prayer. One moment when you say, "May you be happy. May you be safe." Even if the other person never knows you wished it for them. Sometimes that someone will be you. Some days. Your act of compassion is giving yourself permission to rest. To breathe deeply for 5 minutes between tasks. To forgive yourself for being tired, distracted, or imperfect. To remind yourself that you, too, deserve the softness you offer others. A single kind act is not small when you understand how suffering works. Hurt people, but loved people heal people. When you choose compassion, you interrupt that cycle of hurt. You plant a new seed. Maybe the person you were kind to passes it on to someone else, a child, a friend, a stranger on a bus. That new person carries it further still. A simple kind act travels further than you can trace. This is the ripple the Buddha spoke of, the quiet, unstoppable power of a mind trained in loving kindness. Not a mind that ignores injustice or pretends life is easy, but a mind that knows, wherever there is suffering, I can offer a moment of relief. Imagine a world where each of us did just one small thing each day, one gentle gesture to remind someone else, you are not alone. I see you. I wish you well. The world would not suddenly be perfect, but it would be softer, kinder, safer for us all to breathe. So where do you start? Anywhere. Right now. You don't need to wait until you are less busy, less tired, more enlightened. Life never pauses long enough for everything to be perfect. You start where you are, with what you have. Hold the door. Smile at the cashier. Let someone merge into your lane with a wave instead of a scowl. Pick up the phone and call the person you keep meaning to check on. Tell someone what they mean to you before they wonder if you've forgotten. And when the day is done, take a moment to remember, today, I did one thing with a true heart. Today, I was part of making the world gentler. This is not naive. This is courage. In a world that pushes us to be sharper, louder, quicker to anger, compassion is a quiet rebellion. Each small act says, I choose connection over fear. I choose understanding over judgment. I choose love over indifference. Day by day, these small acts build a life that feels more whole, because you live it awake. Not sleepwalking through habits of self-protection and distrust. You begin to see that your power is not in how much you control, but in how much you care. The Buddha did not ask us to change the entire world overnight. He showed us how to change our own hearts, one thought, one breath, one small act at a time. From there, the world cannot help but shift. So, may you find your one act today. And tomorrow. And the day after that. May you remember that compassion does not need to be grand or dramatic, only sincere. May you trust that each small kindness, offered honestly, is big enough to heal more than you will ever see. And may you know that every gentle choice you make is proof that even in an imperfect world, goodness is always possible, one quiet moment, one compassionate heart, one day at a time. Compassion. The doorway back to our humanity. So many of us dream of changing the world. We hope for a kinder society, fairer communities, less suffering, more peace. We look at big problems, injustice, violence, poverty, loneliness, and we wonder what we can possibly do about it. It all feels so overwhelming that sometimes we give up before we begin. But the Buddha's teaching reminds us of a simple truth. To change the world, we must first remember what makes us human. And nothing reconnects us with our true humanity like compassion. Compassion is not some distant, lofty ideal. It is not just for monks in robes or saints in books. It is not something you earn through years of struggle or perfect meditation. It is an ever-present seed inside you, and every small act of genuine care is a doorway back to the deepest part of who you are. The world teaches us to harden our hearts, to protect ourselves first, to look out for number one. It tells us that kindness is naive, that caring too much is a weakness, that the world is too harsh to be soft. But compassion does not make you soft in a way that breaks you. It makes you soft in a way that bends but does not shatter. It is a softness that holds immense strength, the kind of strength that does not seek to conquer, but to heal. You do not need power, money, or status to live with compassion. You only need the willingness to open your heart, first to yourself, then to the person right in front of you, and then, naturally, to the world beyond you. When we look at suffering, the news headlines, the conflicts, the cruelty that humans can inflict on one another, it is easy to lose hope. But every bit of violence, hatred, and fear begins with a single human heart that has forgotten its own goodness. And every bit of healing begins with a heart that dares to remember. You want to change the world? Start here. With the way you greet the people you live with. The patience in your tone. The warmth in your eyes. The quiet prayers you whisper for someone you may never meet. The forgiveness you practice in your own mind so that you do not poison your own spirit with old resentments. When you choose compassion, you choose to break the chain of harm that moves silently from one person to the next. You choose to be a refuge instead of a storm. You choose to say, "The hurt stops here, with me." This is not always dramatic. In fact, it rarely is. Most compassion is invisible to the world's eyes, it happens in tiny moments. A kind word when someone expects blame. A pause to listen when someone needs to speak. A boundary spoken firmly, but with care instead of anger. A hand resting on your own heart when you feel unworthy and alone. These small acts matter. Every time you choose to see someone fully, their struggles, their fears, their hidden longings, you remind them of their own humanity. And when someone feels seen, they are more likely to see others in turn. This is how compassion spreads. One person at a time. One heart at a time. One day at a time. We sometimes tell ourselves that compassion is pointless in a world so broken. That it is too gentle, too slow, too naive to stand up against greed and hate. But history shows the opposite. The moments that changed the world were born from brave acts of compassion, the refusal to answer hate with hate, the insistence that love can disarm fear. The quiet power of humans standing up for one another when they had every reason to stay silent. The Buddha did not ask us to fix the whole world at once. He asked us to take care of the mind and heart that live right here, right now. Because when this heart remembers compassion, it becomes impossible to live the same way we did before. And that change ripples outward, further than we can ever see. One person who knows how to love, forgive, and understand becomes a calm place in the middle of life's storms. One person who can listen deeply becomes a safe harbor for someone else's pain. One person who can meet anger with patience, fear with kindness, suffering with tenderness, that one person is proof that the world can be different. And when you become that person, even for a moment, the world around you shifts. It may not make the headlines, but it makes all the difference to the people who feel your warmth instead of your coldness, your understanding instead of your judgment. You do not need to be perfect. You will forget. You will lose your temper. You will close your heart again and again. That is okay. The point is not to never forget, the point is to remember again, and again, and again. To keep choosing to open the door, no matter how many times you shut it before. Each act of compassion is like a candle lit in a dark room. One flame can light another, and another, and another. Until the darkness is not so complete anymore. It starts with you, not because you are special or perfect, but because you are human. And compassion is what humans do when they remember who they truly are. So may you begin today, not with a grand plan to save the world, but with one simple choice to soften your heart. To let yourself be touched by life. To let your kindness be real, even if it goes unnoticed. To forgive when you can. To stand up when it is needed. To rest when you are tired. And begin again tomorrow. This is the true doorway back to our humanity. May you walk through it, again and again. And with each step, may you trust that when one person loves, one piece of this vast, hurting world is already changed. If, after listening to this, you feel even a small moment of calm settling into your heart, that is the quiet power of compassion at work. Sometimes we think we need huge answers or perfect solutions to heal our lives. But the truth is, it often begins with something as simple as remembering to be gentle with ourselves. With each other, with the world that is doing its best to heal in its own way. If these words, or the teachings of the Buddha shared here today, touched something tender inside you, I invite you to pause for a moment. Let it settle. Let it remind you that this gentle part of you is always there, no matter how noisy or harsh life can become. I would love to hear what this teaching stirred in you. Please feel free to share your thoughts or your own quiet realizations in the comments below. You never know, your words may be exactly what someone else needs to read tonight to feel less alone, more understood, and maybe a little more whole. And if you wish to keep walking this peaceful path together, I warmly invite you to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. Each week, we gather here again, to sit quietly. To listen deeply, to breathe more freely, and to remind ourselves that we are capable of compassion, courage, and understanding. May these moments become small seeds that you carry into your day, seeds of kindness, calm, and presence. May they guide you back to yourself when you forget. And help you remember that the gentlest parts of you are never lost. Thank you for choosing to be here, for sharing your time and your heart. May you be well, may you be safe. May you know peace in each breath you take. I look forward to seeing you in our next session, where we keep learning, keep growing. And keep remembering what it means to return to the most compassionate version of ourselves. With deep gratitude for your presence, and with a wish for your days to be filled with ease and warmth.